If you think back to the way the band sounded then compared to the way it sounded now, are you like, oh, we were garbage?
Yeah.
Hey, welcome to another episode of the Afikra Quartertones podcast. My name is Mikey Mhenno. Today on the series, I'm really excited because we are talking about a genre of music that isn't always talked about when we talk about the Arab world and what music from this region and of this region can sound like. We are talking about progressive rock, progressive heavy metal. And with us is Anuryzm, John Bakhos, who is one of the founding members of the band Anuryzm. John, welcome to Afikra.
Thank you, Mikey. Thanks. Happy to be here.
It's fun having you on because, when I first reached out to you, I told you when I was in high school, I was in a prog rock band. And I feel like it's almost like this essential part of the musical landscape of the Arab world. And so I'll start real quick. When did you start listening to metal, and when did you start becoming interested in progressive rock?
Well, I started listening when I was pretty young, I would say, and I didn't even start with metal. I started with hard rock. I believe I must have been maybe around 10 or 11 years old, and my cousin introduced me to bands like Guns N' Roses, Aerosmith, things like that. And, you over the years, you start to build up on that repertoire, and you start listening to Metallica, Nirvana, all those classics, the classic bands, let's say. So yeah, I think, but when I really got into metal, probably I was about, I would say 13 maybe. That's when I started getting into the Iron Maiden, Megadeth, Testament, Slayer, all that. Again, classic bands, but those were my main metal influences growing.
Why do you think metal is so deeply, deeply, deeply popular across the Arab world?
Good question. It has, how do we say this? It has this aggression to it, which kind of, lets you, exert all that energy into that so that you don't go out and probably kill somebody or, drive reckless on the roads. It's a good outlet if you're filled with a lot of emotions and let's say it could be any emotion, could be rage, could be happiness, whatever. Metal is there to kind of help. It amplifies those emotions, let's say. For the Arab world, I mean, we don't need to look too far. I mean, we have problems everywhere. It's not government problems, political problems, money problems, economical problems. So I think people are enraged and they just want something let's say, as they say, right? So yeah. I think metal plays a good part in that. I mean, personally for me, it was another side to it. I was bullied a lot when I was in school, and it took a toll on me, let's say. And I took on metal that kind of gave me a safe place, gave me the confidence to kind of rise out of that and not feel sorry for myself and to try and stand up for myself whenever I would be in those situations where I was, bullied. And it helped a lot. And it got me into guitar playing and got me to where I am today with the band and the music. So,
yeah. When did you start calling yourself a guitarist?
Good question. I don't know if I ever called myself a guitarist. I mean, I play guitar. I like to think of myself as a musical creator. I like to produce. I like to play with sounds. But obviously, I mean, when I was a kid, when I was learning the guitar, I'm a guitar player, it's, but I wasn't really creating music at the time when I started. So probably a good decade before I could really call myself the guitarist of X band or whatever. It took a while. Yeah.
So, for those who don't know, how would you describe or how would you define progressive rock, versus other subgenres in the sort of broader rock and metal genre?
In rock and metal, there are literally thousands of subdivisions, so you can easily get lost in all that clutter. For progressive rock, I mean, when you say those two words together, immediately I think of bands that came out of the 60s and 70s era. So I think of like the Pink Floyds, the Camel, Jethro Tull. They had a different approach to song structure. So, the commercial stuff would be, okay, we'll have a short intro, verse, bridge, chorus, verse 2, bridge, chorus, another bridge, then extended chorus, outro. So it's very limited in format. With prog rock, they broke all those rules, and they just said, let's toy around, let's do something different here, and let's do something unique there. We can do an outro and the intro being the same thing. We can change the mood of the song somewhere in the middle. It could be something totally unrelated. And the songs don't have to be 3-4 minutes long. They could be 7, 8, 9, 20 minutes in some cases, if you know bands like Dream Theater. So for me, that's what spells prog rock.
So like bands like Yes, and even the Beatles started experimenting with this idea.
Yeah.
Is there a difference between prog rock and prog metal?
Of course. Prog, in terms of instrumentation, you're talking the level of distortion on the guitars is different. It's crunchier for metal. The song structures are also different. Prog metal didn't come about until, I guess, bands like Dream Theater came out. There wasn't really a prog metal band before then. Or at least I'm trying to think. If you categorize maybe a band like Rush, they came out early in the 70s, I think. Then they turned into metal. They were prog rock, and then they start getting into prog metal. So I think the difference is in the instrumentation, the intensity of the guitars, the intensity of the drums. Prog rock likes to take things maybe mild and slow, build up on nice beat. And in metal, it's amplified. It's 2 times faster, 4 times faster. But the essence of it is there. Like, you still have that idea of, I don't need to copy paste every time. I can make the songs go like a journey. I'm traveling from A to B. I'm experimenting with different sounds, different sites. So the essence is there, but it's in the instrumentation.
So you started the band in 2003. It's like 20 years ago. You were at university, I think at AV.
Yeah.
If you think back to the way the band sounded then compared to the way it sounded now, are you like, oh, we were garbage?
Yeah. To put it nicely, yeah, we were garbage. Actually, we weren't that bad. We were playing. When the band started out, it wasn't intended to be a prog metal band. It was just a band, and our idea was we wanted to learn cover song to play in pubs for pocket money, because we were kind of broke. We wanted some cash.
Yeah.
So we wanted to do I don't know if you remember Kalinka, for example, or some bars in Romano. We wanted to really explore that route, play covers, but not many bands were doing those kind of covers that we wanted to do. So we were looking at bands like Creed, Nickelback, 3 Doors Down, very rock based at the time.
Yeah.
And when we were in the jam room practicing those songs, I'd come up with a few guitar licks, and the drummer at the time, Roger, came up with drum stuff. And we decided, let's just toy around with the music, see what we come up with. And we came up with a couple of tracks. They were quite decent. We didn't have a full-fledged vocalist at the time. We had a part-time vocalist, let's say. But we came out with 3 tracks, and we eventually played those live. But funny enough, 2 of those tracks actually made it to our debut album. Of course, in a perfected form. I mean, stuff changed. They became more metal-based. But yeah, I kept some of the essence in the first album.
So you started in 2003, and the album didn't come out. The first album didn't come out 6 years later.
No, more, 2011.
2011. Okay,
yeah,
so
took a long time.
8 years later. What happened in that range that sort of slowed everything down?
Well, when we kind of started out and became pretty decent to play live, I was already finishing college at that point. I think it was about 2004. And I was set to travel overseas, for work and stuff like that. So as soon as I left, I mean, things just stopped. But I kept writing and practicing and rehearsing by myself. I wrote pretty much a whole album within the 2-3 years I was away. And I would come back to Lebanon every now and again just to see if the guys were interested. It was on and off. At some point, I was like, okay, the guys don't seem too interested, so I'll just keep it with me. If I can find a band overseas, I'll make it happen. Then at some point, we lost the original rhythm guitar player. He passed away. So at that point, I was devastated. I was in Turkey at the time. I was living there in Istanbul. And I think this would have been 2005 or 6, something like that. And I said, you know what, I can't do this. Just stop, just for the sake of, for respect. And then it went on hold. I ended up moving to Toronto, Canada, and I felt like reviving it again. I spoke to the guys, said, look, guys, we have all this music. I want to do something with it. Do I have your blessing? Can I go on? I'll keep, Bernard was his name. I'll keep Bernard's memory in it. I just want to push it forward. And they said, yeah, sure, knock it out of the ballpark. So that's what I did. And as soon as I got to Canada, I started to interview for different bands, met different people, guitar players, drummers, bassists, etc. And then I ended up with another resurrection for Anuryzm in Toronto.
Do you feel like when you take a band like that or an idea, the sonic references are different, right?
Yeah.
Even if you're all listening to, Rush and Dream Theater and Metallica and Slayer or whatever you're listening to, you're also surrounded with different musical textures and references by being in Beirut, right?
Yeah.
Do you feel like all of a sudden you could, it was hard to maintain the same sound and maintain similar, similar approaches once you all of a sudden start playing in Canada? Or is it not as big of a deal as I'm imagining?
Well, the main issue was when I was in Beirut at the time, there was a lot of pressure from, be it friends and people in the music biz, saying, you need to, because you're from Lebanon, you need to make your music sound kind of Oriental. Okay, let it be metal, fine, but let it sound Oriental. And I actually took that idea and made a song in that style, and it was with a previous band prior to Anuryzm. It did okay. It ended up on radio for like 10 weeks or something. I don't know if you remember Jad Moore's station on RML. So he played it quite a bit, and that was like, wow. I'm so proud to have I was pretty young also, so proud to have that song on the radio play first. But it had an Oriental twist. But quickly after that, I decided, why do I have to sound Oriental? Like, it's not in my blood. It's not in my genes to do something like that. It's not the first thing I think of when I touch a guitar. Play, like, you kind of, whatever comes out, you stick to that, right?
Yeah.
I would have been doing a very conscious effort to like, no, I need to do these Oriental scales and to get something in the vibe that, you know, the public wants, you know, people ask,
Yeah, it would
what
be
people
cynical.
ask them. Yeah. So I quickly gave up on that idea, and I just said, you know, I'm playing from the heart. Whatever I feel like playing, that's what I want to sound like. I don't want to be something I'm not. And that kept going until today. So even when I was in Canada, I didn't have much of a problem anyway, because I was in that mindset and people appreciated that. They enjoyed the music for what it was and not for something it should have been or could have been, because I'm from Lebanon.
Yeah. Okay, let's listen to some of the music. So the first
Sure.
track that you chose is Neo Luddite.
Yeah.
Tell me about what this track is, when it came out, and the vision for it before we listen to it.
Well, we what we're trying to do with this third album is we're not releasing albums anymore. It's a kind of a thing of the past, especially if you're a new band. It is very difficult to get exposure when you're releasing albums. So it's always recommended that, you know, put out singles and you make them highly interactive, video clips, whatever, and good sound bites and things like that. So we decided every track on this EP would be, this album would be a video and convey kind of a story. So it's like a concept album. That's it. And for those that maybe don't know what Neo-Luddite means, because a lot of people ask, a Luddite is somebody that doesn't believe in technology, that doesn't follow doesn't think that, you know, things, for example, like AI and computers and internet, they're not good for humanity. So a Neo-Luddite is somebody in the future that's still stuck on those tradition type mentality. So
okay, cool.
Yeah. So the song is basically just what you're listening to is a build up on this. It's in the middle of the stories. It's kind of a starting point for the album. It's a cool video. We liked it. We worked quite a bit on it with a video producer. And there you go. Hope you enjoy.
All right, let's watch a little bit of it. Amazing. So I'm going to stop it here. The video clip is incredible.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's incredible. It's oh, sorry. It's funny. I'm listening to this and I'm wondering to myself, how do you write a song like this? I mean, do you write it? Does it unfurl from the first measure onwards, and you sort of just write it in order, or are there sketches of ideas that you piece together and sort of think through, like, I guess this goes here, and I guess this goes there, I guess this goes there?
Well, the way we did it was for every album has a mascot on the cover, and it's basically the story of that mascot leading up to this latest album. And so, obviously, in the first record, I didn't have any ideas about doing this into kind of like a storyline. I had a dream, let's say, or an ambition to kind of switch it over to comics because it's very comic friendly. I wanted to do something like that in that realm and just get out of music totally, but I stuck with the music there. Even for the second record, same thing. And then for this record, we decided, let's build on the story. Like it's somewhere in the distant future, kind of Star Wars with that kind of storyline, let's say.
Yeah.
And but I wrote a script for the whole story in short terms, let's say, and then I subdivided into parts, and then I figured, okay, I'll build songs around these, and then we can approach it lyrically in a way that, okay, it's not. I mean, you're kind of taking elements and telling the story, but at the same time, it could be generic enough to stand on its own. Like every song can stand on its own lyrically. It doesn't have to be backed by a story.
Yeah. It's funny because it's interesting. I asked you about writing it and you didn't talk about the music at all.
I know, exactly.
Because so you start with the story entirely.
The story was very important for me on this record. I mean, of course, the music is very important and all that, but we've been doing that. Music it's going to be there one way or another. So we wanted another element to kind of make it stand out. Like if you're going to get this into the ears of many people, it has to mean something, and it has to catch their eye, catch everything. So we did as well as we could, catching the listeners' ears. Unfortunately, everything's changed now. The dynamic of the music industry has changed. If you're not on TikTok, you're not doing videos every day, if you're not talking about your private life and all that stuff, you're irrelevant, unfortunately. So obviously we are the kind of people that don't like to portray ourselves on TikTok and things like that in a very public way and, every day, with those kind of videos. So we said we have to compensate in another way. So that means whatever we release, whether it be a song or an album, has to be backed up by very strong video content that can kind of lure the listener in and keep the mystery. I like mystery in the band. I don't feel the listeners of today appreciate that. Like back in the day, you would buy a cassette tape or a CD, and you'd open the booklet, you'd read through it, and you'd memorize the songs, you'd know the words, but there was always this mystery behind the band. You wouldn't know what they were like in their private lives. It had that, I don't know, that it factor, if you know what I mean. And we wanted to keep that. I'm definitely not somebody that supports this idea of I have to be on Instagram or TikTok every day promoting myself. No, let the music and let the videos stand out for themselves. Hopefully catching the listener's attention and making them want more. That was the idea.
Yeah, something tells me that you aren't, you're not alone, and that most people who play this type of music aren't sharing pictures of their avocado toast on TikTok.
You'd be surprised. A lot have gotten into it, fallen for this trap. But it's their bread and butter. It's not like us. Like we have our day jobs, we have our families. it's not a priority. For some of these bands, they have to do it. So it's unfortunate, but it is what it is.
So let's listen to the next one.
Sure.
The next one is Ruby Demon.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about this one.
So it's basically this girl in Luddite. If you see that little girl, she's basically grown up now, and she's kind of like a sci-fi fighter, with special powers, and that's it. I won't say more than that. I mean, you'll see it.
Okay, amazing. Let's listen. Okay, I have so many questions for this guy. And I'm curious about the music. I mean, it keeps on, like a lot of progressive rock, it keeps on shifting time signatures and feels. How do you guys learn these? How do you map these out? I mean, how do you chart them out? How do you build out it musically? Are you like, oh, we want this to feel like this? And are you telling the drummers what to do? And how do you actually put these songs together?
Well, for the longest time, I'm working alone because the band is pretty much split across the globe right now. So I would have to make the demos and then share with the guys and get their feedback and do some fixes here and there. But generally speaking, it starts with the guitar. If I like something, I'll put it down, I'll record it, maybe add some layers to it. I'll even add all the keyboards and synths to that. Then I would like to hear it with a drum track, so I can even play the drums. Of course, everything on the laptop these days, and you kind of get a sense and the feel of like what the part sounds like. Yeah, you just keep listening to it on and off, and then you start to hear, like for me at least, what works. I mean, I hear like what happens next in my head. So, okay, now I feel like in this next part, it has to do this or it has to do that. Then I'll just pick up the guitar again and then toy around until I kind of project what's in my head onto the fretboard. And I record that, and the process just repeats itself until I have kind of like a semblance of a track.
And what about the lyrics?
Lyrics is way at the end. I mean, of course, I'm much better now than I used to be when I was a lot younger. I'm more of a professional now when it comes to this. I give time now for vocals, so I don't oversaturate with other things like a lot of guitar work, crazy technical stuff happening, in the background. I'm very focused now on giving vocals space and room to do something with the song. So it's always on the back of my mind.
It's funny that you said professional, because I do feel like there's an immaturity associated with sort of young rock groups.
Yeah.
That they they are sort of like there is like an animus towards vocals and vocalists.
I mean, like I said, when you asked me at the beginning of the talk, when did you consider yourself a guitar player? I said, I don't. I consider myself to be a producer, like a song creator, let's say. Because for me, what's important is the song. I don't care about like what this guy's abilities are. Of course I care. The musicians have to be good at what they do, but I care about what's good for the song and not necessarily what's good for that person or this person. So with that in mind, you will always find middle ground to like give space for everybody. So if a part is vocally charged, everything needs to tone down for that vocal to push out. Same with like guitar solos, same with drum fills and things like that. So it's always on my mind. Like we're creating a mood, we're creating a vibe, we're creating a story. So it has to have its ups and downs. So we cannot be fully charged like, full blast. Let's go A to Z, 4 minutes long.
Yeah.
So it's nice to have those peaks and valleys.
So when I asked you in the beginning why you started playing this music, you essentially said it was because you were angry. And this is
it was my outlet, let's say, because I was bullied and I had nowhere else to go.
And also because like the system and the society in the Arab world, engenders anger.
Yeah.
When you listen to this music that you're making now, do you feel that same anger?
No. Now I feel uplifted. I feel that it has enough energy in a positive way, not a negative way. Like I said, a lot of people I know that listen to metal, it's just push out all that excess, whatever you're feeling, just push it out there. So instead of you could be going to play basketball, for example. You could be riding your motorbike at 200 kilometers an hour, or you could play metal and listen to metal. It's kind of an outlet, let's say, to just release all those emotions, all that stress, and you feel a ton of relief. Especially, it empowers you. I don't know if you understand me. I don't know if people
I completely understand.
Just when you listen to that, like the drum beat, like a special, like very symphonic part that, it uplifts you. It takes you to another dimension. Almost.
Do you, have you ever heard this theory, or let me rephrase this.
Yeah.
I remember when I was a kid, when I was a teenager, in Beirut, that people said, once upon a time, heavy metal was illegal in Lebanon. Is that true?
Like I was a visitor myself to Lebanon. I went in 98. I stayed there till 2004. So,
did you ever hear this though?
I heard that there were kids listening to Nirvana and then they committed suicide. Then because of that, metal got banned, and then they started seeing some like Satan. I was there during the satanic stuff. I was there, and it was rubbish, just a bunch of rubbish. Because we knew a lot of people. Like personally, I knew a lot of people that are just good people, had nothing to do with anything. They were beaten up, imprisoned, questioned for just listening to metal. Then we had that time when they were doing a TV show interviews with could have been Zaven at the time. I don't know. I don't remember. And also the subject was metal and Satanism. Are they the same thing? Etc. Etc. So it was a bit. It was crap. It was.
I mean, do you feel like your music is largely misunderstood and your genre is like constantly being censored?
Definitely when I was there at the time, yes. Now, not so much. It's people have opened up. At least where I live now, I'm in the UAE. It's very open, and I think it's even more open than Lebanon. I think Lebanon still adheres to like the past, the olden days. Not metal doesn't have still much of an appreciation like it does in other parts of the world.
You know, it's okay. So those are two parts of the Arab world. Halla, بعد شوي, I want to ask you about, the genre across the Arab world and, where is a lot of music being produced that falls under this umbrella. But maybe this is a good time to ask you, like, if you were to put together a playlist for somebody who wants an intro to rock music from the Arab world, however you define it, who would be on that playlist?
If I look at, for example, okay, let's talk Lebanon because we're Lebanese. I have some good friends who are in Turbulence. I would definitely put them on the record. There's another band called Ostura. I don't know if you've heard of them. Chimera, who the lead vocalist passed away last year, unfortunately. There's Blackium, there's Havar. I played with Havar on one track. I did some solo work for them. Quartertones, if you know them. So those are the Lebanese guys that are doing pretty much a lot of the heavy lifting for metal, at least I would say in Lebanon, and even regionally, by the way. There are Lebanese bands are known to be much better than their Arab brothers. Granted, there are some bands coming out now, for example, from Saudi Arabia, from the UAE, there's bands coming. I have to also add, if you heard of Nerve Cell, they've been around for ages in Dubai. They're very good. They've pretty much lifted, the Middle Eastern genre overseas markets. I would credit them a lot with that. And I would have a Tunisian band called Mirath. I don't know if you heard of them. Those guys are quite oriental. Played with them in Dubai, I would say 5-6 years ago, something like that. They're really good at what they do, and they have that passion for the oriental metal style. So they integrate that a lot in their performances. They bring, belly dancers. It's a nice show. And that's pretty much it, basically. That would be on my plate.
Are all of you, Hala, you just mentioned the show.
Yeah.
But do you feel like all of you are kind of writing music in your living rooms and sort of creating these huge anthemic songs and not even songs, entire universes? Like you're building these like Blade Runner style universes on your laptop.
Yeah.
Is that essentially most of the music is done like that?
No. A lot of these bands, they actually just go and play in a room together and just sit there and just play until something comes out, and then they...
But as opposed to being performed live, like this is music that's sort of crafted internally and is meant to be listened on headphones or
or in the car. Yeah, I agree. Again, this comes back to one important question: is, are you professional enough to consider not only that you need to give time to those musicians to stand out on the song or the record, but consider how things will look like when you go and play this on a stage? That was something we had to learn the hard way. When I wrote the second album, that part totally skipped my mind. And all the songs we wrote for that second record were a nightmare to play live. Literally a nightmare. I'm talking like I had a pedal board, I had pedals all over the floor. I was struggling. There were like 15 parts in every song. You're like, oh, how do I catch up now? Oh, I have to run across stage, come back, push this switch, push that. It was a mind fuck. Sorry for the word. But So a lot of the music, unfortunately, is made for listening in the car or listening laptop. It's not made for live. And I have to confess, probably the second album we did is made for that. I wouldn't play most of those songs live. They're so different. But again, I was very conscious in this record to not have that problem. And I was also conscious in the first record, and we didn't have that problem. The songs do very well in a live setting. I was very fortunate about that.
Okay, let's listen to the last one, and then we're going to wrap up.
Yeah.
All right. So the last one is Cosmos. Tell us a little bit about this record before we listen.
So it's just it's an introductory song to the whole album. Let's say it's just time from the beginning of the universe until today and beyond. It's just like a quick history lesson that kind of sets the mood for the story, which is what you see in Ruby Demon and near Luddite.
Okay, cool. Let's take a listen. I'm going to stop it here. Have you ever done any film scoring?
No. I've been
Is it something
told
that
I
you'd
should.
want to do?
I've been told I should, but I wouldn't mind trying.
I feel like you are trying.
I'm doing it for my own films.
Yeah. I mean, to me, it's very clearly something that you're interested in.
Like I said, I feel the visual factor now is just as important as the listening factor.
Mm.
It's very important to have visual content music. It's very difficult to succeed or get ears to listen to it otherwise these days, because everything is on, like I said, on TikTok, on Instagram, all that stuff. If you don't have any videos, it's a losing game.
So I was reading about you beforehand, and I told myself I need to ask you this question.
Yeah.
What was it like to perform on the same stage as Black Sabbath?
Oh, that was a crazy time for us. It was, I mean, we were extremely lucky to get that gig. That's for sure. We had a lot of players doing stuff in the back to help us get it. We got it. It was such a great night. I mean, we prepared all our hearts into that performance that night, I recall. And it was a tough night. It wasn't easy to get there. And luckily, like when you have those lights on, you don't feel the vastness of the people in front of you. You know what I mean? It could have been just one person out there that you wouldn't see that.
Where was it?
It was in the arena here in Abu Dhabi. I think it was 10,000 people. 7,000, 10,000. I can't remember. But yeah, at some point, like it's dark. You see absolutely nothing. So you're just focused on, your performance. You hear the band with in-ears. So it's like you're playing in the living room, basically. And that's how we were able to go through it. It was really a good time. We had a lot of fun.
Did you get to meet Black Sabbath too?
Yeah. We met them before the gig. They were doing a press conference, and we were invited to go meet with them and watch the press conference and all that. So we met them backstage, took photos. Very nice guys. I mean, Ozzy he's cool guy. Very funny too. Really very funny.
How are they live?
Very good. It's very tight. What most people don't know is there are like three guys now, right? Okay, with the drummer. But there is a guy who's hidden on the side of the stage that kind of plays like the extra guitars or the keyboards or whatever. And you don't see him. He's like playing with the band, but he's hidden, kind of like the hidden character. And so I was surprised with that. I thought, why hide the guy? Just put him on stage with you. But I mean, those guys are so iconic. You don't want somebody a little unknown to be on stage, I guess, was their marketing strategy. But I was a little shocked after the gig when Ozzy was leaving the stage. He had like 2 oxygen stands with him, and he was breathing through them. He was going down literally like an old man. I mean, he had 2-3 people helping him down. He was lost for breath, unfortunately. Granted, that day was a really hot day, and as you can imagine, in Abu Dhabi, it was 39, 40 degrees Celsius when we were playing. We were practically drenched after the show. Luckily, we had just a few fans to help us out, but it was a tough time to play that day. I mean, for him, I can imagine, very tough.
Do you feel like most people in your life know that you have this side of you?
Which side exactly?
That you are an aneurysm?
Everyone close to me does. I don't boast about it. I don't talk about it anymore. It's just something I do.
Like the people at work, do they know that this is a huge part of your life?
I don't promote that at work because I'm a boss over there, and I feel like it's just people have researched me, and they came up to my office and said, "You're in a band, right?" I'm like, "Yeah, don't search for me again or you're fired." So I'm a very private person, to be honest. I don't like promoting myself too much, like doing this interview, for example. It's something that takes me out of my comfort zone.
Yeah.
I'm super private about my life, about what I do. So except for music, like I'll go on stage, I'll do that stuff. But otherwise, it's not my thing, let's say.
Yeah. Before we wrap up, I want to ask you our quick Q&A, and then we're gonna wrap up.
Sure.
So first question is, what are you listening to these days?
What am I listening to these days? question. I'm obviously listening to the demos for the new album, so I can come up with new material. I'm listening to. I have a favorite prog band that I listen to now a lot. They're called Voyager from Australia. I don't know if you heard of them. I also listen to a lot of the classic stuff. I mean, like if you go to the Dream Theaters, and I was listening to Megadeth the other week. That's pretty much it, musically.
Okay. Who would you love to shadow for a day, past or present?
Music?
Anything.
Or in life, and anything in general.
Yeah.
Would like to shadow. Albert Einstein.
Okay.
I'm a physics student and astrophysics, and I love to be in that room with him when he was writing his theory of relativity.
Okay, cool. What do you think people most misunderstand about your work?
My day job or my music work?
Music
work. I think people might take for granted how difficult it can be. So like if I tell friends, for example, guys, please check out this track, to, go on YouTube, listen to this. We need your help. Share it with your friends, with your family. We need to get as many ears and eyes as possible. They kind of might take that for granted. Okay, whatever, I'll do it later. John again with his music. They don't understand how much work goes into it. I don't talk about that. I don't complain, let's say, about how much work goes into creating like an album or a video, whatever. I'll just give the headlines.
Yeah. Okay, last one is, who would be your dream collaborator?
Oh, well. If I go prog rock, I would love to collaborate Ian Anderson from Jethro Tull, or maybe even Steven Wilson from Pine Tree, and just for shits and giggles, Dave Mustaine from Megadeth.
Okay. Last question, which is not on here.
Yeah.
Who is on your Mount Rushmore of musicians?
Wow.
Let's do bands. Let's do bands.
Bands.
Mount Rushmore of bands.
Rush, Porcupine Tree, Jethro Tull, Yes. I feel like I have to put a thrash band in there. Maybe Pantera or Testament.
Do you wish that metal was more popular than it is, or are you happy where it is in terms of popularity? Like when you turn on the radio, are you like, oh, it's so annoying that they don't play metal?
Well, lucky for me, I don't turn on the radio. I think radio's dead. I think it's very popular. I mean, if you go to Europe, it's extremely popular, and especially in Germany and the UK and in the Netherlands. Those guys, when you go to the summer festivals, they are literally packed, 100,000, 50,000. So it's quite popular there. If you're talking about maybe this region, like in the Arab world, I would say, it would be nice to get more support, more activities happening, let's say. I mean, because there's practically nothing. You're lucky if there's one show you can attend or a couple of shows a year. It's very dry in the region.
Do you feel like that's an issue with the popular support, or is it an issue with media? Is it an issue with funding? Because like for Quartertones, right? There's a lot of interest in broad interests, in particular with funding and with media, with hip hop from the Arab world, with pop music from the Arab world, with classical Arabic music, with jazz, like Arab jazz, like all of those subgenres. There is this sort of like interest. Ooh, this is kind of cool and sexy.
Yeah.
But with with metal and rock, more traditional rock, it doesn't seem to be sexy in that way, which is surprising to me because of how insanely popular at least Western metal bands are.
Yeah.
You know, like every kid, as far as I was concerned growing up, like Metallica may as well be an Arab band. Like,
Exactly. It's very hard to answer that question. I mean, your guess is as good as mine. I mean, it's exposure. It has a lot to do with exposure. I mean, if you are not exposed to this distorted sound from a young age, it's gonna be super hard for you to like appreciate it, like in your teens or when you're an adult. Sorry, like my wife can't stand this distorted sound. She hates. I mean, she likes a few things here and there, but it's not like something that she gravitates towards. You know, versus me, I need some sort of distortion in there to kind of like get a sense and feel for the song. And I feel that's where the difference happens, especially with people in the Arab world. You know, they're used to these Arabic songs. They're mostly about love and breakup. I mean, it's very generic. There's nothing special to it, but people seem to like it because they relate. There's a lot of heartbreak, a lot of, you know, sadness, a lot of things like that. So they can relate, I guess. And of course, they speak Arabic, so they're not going to listen to an English song. So it's always been metal's always been on the outskirts of everything, practically since its inception. So I think it will continue to be that for the foreseeable future. But that's okay. I mean, that's fine. It just it would have been nicer to have a little more support in the Middle East than it is usually. But there's always a following in Europe and in the West and whatever. It's only sad for like bands like us and all our brothers in Lebanon and in all the other Gulf countries, etc., that they want these opportunities. As a metal band, you want to play in festivals and things like that, and you just can't unless you have money. You go, you pay, you play. That's the only way, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, if anyone's interested in connecting with you, it's easy to find you online. Anuryzm is ANURYZM.com. You can find on social media, on the website, and who knows, maybe there'll be a picture of your avocado toast on TikTok very soon.
I hope.
All right, John, thanks so much.
Thank you, Mike. I appreciate it. Thank you so much.